episode of the Construction Industry Conversations, brought to you by the ACPM, which is the Association of Construction Project Managers. The episode today is somewhat different because we are on site at Wits University attending a panel discussion has been organized by the Construction Management Foundation and Wits University. The panel discussion is really reflecting on the insurgence of construction mafia in South African construction projects. And with me, I have the members that are part of the panel of the discussions that are still to take place. I have with me today Mr. Gregory Mofokeng, the CEO from the Black Business Council in the built environment. Welcome, Mr. Mofokeng.
Thank you for having us, ma'am.
Thank you very much. And I also do have Mr. Mpendulo Ndlazi from the CIDB. He is a board member of the CIDB. Welcome, Mr. Ndlazi.
That's kind.
Okay, and also lastly, we do have Terence Mwase, business manager at MBSA, which is Master Builders South Africa. They are part of the panel that is going to further discuss this matter. But it's not only about discussions, it's to actually look at what has caused it, where we are right now as a construction industry, but most importantly, what is the way forward, what is the recommendation as well. And I would like to start with you, Mr. Mofokeng. Can you just briefly tell us, from the point of view of your organization, where do you fit in and what is it that you would like to see? And if there's any other stakeholders that you think are part of the solution, and if you can just really say what is the role that you think they need to play. Over to you, Mr. Mofokeng.
Thank you, ma'am. We are part and parcel of this industry by virtue of being a business chamber that represents businesses that operate in this sector. And our members are obviously affected by what is happening across the board as far as our sites are concerned. Now, the problem that we have here is that we've got sites that are being obviously infiltrated illegally by what you call the construction mafia. We call them the local forums, and as a result, our members are affected. They are unable, some of them, to start projects. Some of them are unable to finish the projects that they've started because their sites are being disrupted by this local forums. Now, we obviously started getting involved in this process 4 years ago when the initial reports started coming in from KwaZulu-Natal. And we made the CIDB aware at the time that this is what is happening. And as the regulator, we had requested them to take decisive measures to ensure that we can rein in some of the elements who were responsible for infiltrating the sites in KwaZulu-Natal. Unfortunately, nothing happened. There were discussions after discussions, but at the end of the day, there was no measures that were implemented to ensure that we stop this practice in KwaZulu-Natal. 4 years on, and following further engagements with other stakeholders such as the Department of Public Works, National Treasury, even the Presidency, we are finding ourselves in a situation where this practice of illegally stopping sites now being the norm, countrywide. And it is rather unfortunate that our government and our regulators have failed to provide a solution for 4 years, since this incident started happening in the market. Where we are at the moment, we obviously are very determined that we must find a solution, especially for the sites that are being illegally stopped. And we, as the BBCB, have written to the Minister of Police to ensure that, at least we can start a conversation with the police because we want law and order on our sites. At the moment, there's no law and order on the sites that have been disrupted by the local forums. Therefore, we need to maintain law and order on our sites. And of course, going forward, the solution is social facilitation. Social facilitation and proper social facilitation has to happen so that by the time our members who are contractors are appointed, they can go and start construction, not start with social facilitation, because we are not appointed, or rather our members are not appointed to do social facilitation.
What we need to establish is that we do not support, if you want to call it mafia, the hostile takeovers or interventions from other players in terms of the construction projects. What we have done for a while now, we've been interacting with our stakeholders as it is legislated in terms of what our mandate is. We've also been engaging Treasury to ensure that there's communication around the triple P. I think that's where the problem lies. There's no understanding or clear understanding of what projects should be allocated to whom, where and when. For example, if a project is in KwaZulu-Natal and people feel that people from another area, another province should not be part of that project. So we have practice notes that we've also rolled out. We're also in discussion with DPW, Department of Public Works, on this matter. But we still feel that there's a lot of support that contractors need in terms of understanding the developmental issues. And we also understand that the market is volatile, so people need jobs, but we have to be together in terms of understanding that you can't intervene in projects where there's a hostile takeover. We do not support that.
No, thank you very much. I would now like to move to Umpendulo, but before we go to Umpendulo, we've just had a view or an opinion also from one of the board members, Dr. Natalie Skeppers, to say actually the CIDB does have some kind of a strategy on how we can move forward on this matter. And Umpendulo, do you then just mind to further elaborate as per input that we have also received from one of your board members?
Thank you. Before I do that, let me start by answering the question you had raised. What has happened? What is it that is triggering this problem? It is a bit of a complex situation, but it can be solved. First, there is an increasing agitation on the part of the population in general for change and transformation. Now, on the regulations promulgated by the government, a policy position was adopted during 2017 to ensure that within the public sector and at particular levels of tender value ranges, there must be peremptory inclusion of small and medium enterprises. This created a reasonable expectation on the part of the population that they shall be seeing more inclusion. Now, first, this is not happening as expected for a range of reasons, which require leadership and a bit of an openness of minds on the part of construction practitioners, both at the regulatory level and at the business level. Generally, there is a concept that is overutilized of shared value. It does not only mean that the shared value should be shared by customers, it also incorporates inclusion of local people in economic activities. This is what agitates the problem. Now, there is a rider on top of that, criminal elements, who are taking chances when there is confusion. What I think the industry must do first, there has got to be a compact on how do we genuinely incorporate local participants or the local forums who are in the construction sector, who have the requisite skills, who can contribute meaningfully in the construction processes so that they too are part of the economic activities. Because it is not good enough for people to clap hands because there's been a road, and yet all the money that has been expended on behalf of their area goes away with the contractors that have come from areas that are foreign. This is generally what causes the agitation. But we have to deal with that first. At the same time, we can then be able to isolate the criminal elements and then be able to include the police. But police alone cannot solve a social protest. That is a protest for economic inclusion.
Do you think it's a failure of the implementation of the policy that is bringing this about? Are our communities capacitated enough to actually understand what it means and how it needs to be implemented?
The messaging, all the stakeholders have failed in sending the correct messaging. You will find instances where, in terms of the compulsory tender limits, where subcontractors must be included, are starting at 30 million, for example. But now you find contractors demanding to be included on projects of 1 million. Now, by any measure, a contract value of 1 million is by its own nature at the level of participation of an emerging micro-enterprise. Now, to demand of that emerging micro-enterprise to assume the burden of administrating subcontractors, managing quality of work, because remember the principal contractor remains accountable for the output, and to facilitate all of that, it becomes unreasonable. But this is some of what the demands are by the local forums, which is now a problem of failed proper messaging on the part of all of us as stakeholders. Now, it is not a problem for construction industry alone, because the author of the regulations, who did a good thing by compelling inclusion of all stakeholders in economic participation, is National Treasury. But we have to have a concerted effort, CIDB together with all the stakeholders first. And then there's to be a genuine openness on the part of established construction companies to want to include the small and medium enterprises, including to values exceeding 30%. Currently, you have problems where this is not being done, or you have circumstances where the main contractors are grudgingly doing it. There are cases where, for example, they compel the subcontractors to take materials from them, from the principal contractors, and the prices of the materials now get to be inflated, and you find a protest. Now, that's not criminality. It's a contractual administration or management dispute. It's a genuine dispute. It leads me to another aspect that we need to build into the administration of all of these contracts: dispute resolution mechanisms. That should be funded. That should be funded quite urgently, including if it is funded by the client departments, but it has to be addressed so that small problems do not become a protest.
You've raised, both yourself and Mr. Mofokeng have raised quite interesting things, and I'm quite happy with the fact that you are saying that at a contractual level there must be some inclusion. One of the aspects that you've raised, Gregory, is that we need to capacitate the communities accordingly. Now, somebody must take responsibility for that. And I do want to believe that those that are in the construction industry, when they tender, obviously, if at all they are going to build in that aspect, that is not even there in the tender specification in terms of upskilling the local communities, then obviously then they become kind of anti-competitive. How do you think we should deal with that, both at the level of the tender specification, because somebody must take the responsibility, but who? But we must also obviously grant our industry practitioners to say they do quite a lot of upskilling, but that money is not catered for within the tender itself. How do you think we can go about that? Because that is what is needed for this to be sustainable.
The responsibility lies with the client. That's where the responsibility lies. So our proposal that we are now discussing with National Treasury is to say when the professional team is being constituted on any project, a social facilitator should form part of that.
Okay.
The client must pay for it, and the work must be done well before the contractor is appointed. Because by the time the contractor is appointed, it's already late.
Thank you.
So that work has to be done prior to the appointment of the contractor, and the social facilitation must be such that it is all inclusive. The community understands what their role is going to be on the project. So by the time the main contractor is appointed, everybody is clear about their role and how they're going to benefit from the project. And by the way, just on something that Pendula has raised, the fact of the matter here is that at the end of the day, construction lends itself to empowering the locals, all right? Now, where main contractors do not adhere to the procurement prescripts of government, we need then the very client bodies to rein them in. You can't have a main contractor that is a law unto itself and not adhering to the provisions of the contract. If the contract says you are going to subcontract 30% of the contract value to the specified designated beneficiaries, that is what should happen. If the main contractor doesn't do that, we rely again on the client to make sure that they rein them in. And this is exactly where the problem is with the communities, where the communities are disempowered. So they don't know who to go to. They raise the issues with the clients don't act, and that's why the communities will end up taking matters into their own hands, because they're not getting that all-important assistance from the clients.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mofokeng. It means I do hope that part of the debate will talk about clarifying those roles and actually having guidelines understood by all of the stakeholders and parties involved, including the local communities. Let us just go now to Terence Mwase, the business manager at Master Builders South Africa. Terence, can you just share with us from the point of your organization, as it's also represented in all of you've got a national footprint actually. From the point of your organization, what is your involvement? What would you like to see happening? What do you think are some of the solutions that we can look at? And how can we tap into your organization really to kind of come up with recommendations and way forward on this matter?
Thank you, Ms. Nomvula. Master Builders represents up to about 4,000 contractors in the country, and a significant proportion of those have been affected with illegal stoppages of construction sites. And an ongoing concern that we have raised at the presidency level as well as at the ministerial level relates to the first thing is the messaging, the packaging of the messaging as Pendley has highlighted, but also failure on the part of the law enforcement officials to ensure that acts of criminality do not form part or do not dilute the genuine message of the communities on the need for economic transformation, particularly in the construction sector. And as Master Builders, we've been clear on our support for economic transformation, particularly in the construction sector. We've worked with legitimate forums that have highlighted genuine concerns and addressed those. We've established dispute resolution mechanisms that are in place to ensure that our members, be it at the level of the principal contractor or at the subcontractor level, are adhere to the specifications of each of the contract requirements. However, the challenge that we have faced relates to the illegitimate forums that arise and sacrifice, that are sacrificing the construction industry for short-term gains. And those are the ones that we've called upon the minister to please enforce the rule of law to ensure that the message of transformation in the construction industry is not lost.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Gregory, just by the way, let me just indicate, as you said, I'm saying construction mafia. That's not the view of the Association of Construction Managers. It's just what the theme is being said to be for today. So that's really not the view of the ACPM. We also do believe and we say that there are our local forums, and as he's saying, there are those local forums that are structured in a manner in which it makes engagement easy. But gentlemen, I just want to wish you well as you are going to further debate with other panelists on this matter, and we will be taking a short break, and after the break we will be talking to the representative, the national representative of the business forums, to just say what is it that can be done and where do they think that both business, academia and the government at large has failed them as communities, and obviously their views on how this matter needs to be resolved, because we need to resolve this so that our students and obviously the up and coming that wants to enter this industry are not just scared by a matter that can be resolved. Thank you once more, and I just want to wish you well on your further deliberations on the matter.
Thank you. Thank you.
They are very worried about the industry that they're about to walk into and whether it still has careers ahead of them in that. And I think what's been happening to the large contractors has magnified that a bit. And to be honest, we've already seen it in the registrations. Our numbers are down, not so much for our program because we've actually reduced our undergraduate intake this year, but for civil engineering it's definitely down, and that might well be because people are seeing the industry as not being attractive and parents are steering their children into other pathways, other occupations. So it is entirely possible we may find that across the board it becomes a less popular career choice.
Welcome back, and we are continuing with the engagements actually and the discussions as the construction industry conversation regarding the event that has been organized by the Construction Management Foundation and Wits University. And now we have Ubusisi Wempembe, who is the chairperson of the Construction Management Foundation. Busi, welcome to the CIC.
Thank you very much, Nomvula.
Thank you, it's nice to have you. Can you just share with us to say why did you organize this panel discussion? And I must say the panelist is quite good because it gives us a variety from our industry players, be it government, business, and the practitioners themselves. Can you just say what is it that would like to achieve? What is it that would like to achieve at the end of this debate? And I'm also really interested to say discussions will come out there, recommendations will come out there, and proposal. Then what is the way forward? What do you intend to do with all of those?
Okay. First of all, Construction Management Foundation, it's a thought leadership organization. We use academic research in order to find ways of coming up with solutions to most of the challenges within the construction industry. And we've seen in the past couple of years, and especially now, more than any time, in the past month, there's been letters written to the president of this country, to various ministers by construction bodies, calling for action within the construction industry. Because as you're aware, the construction mafia, as it's been termed, disruptions by this mafia on construction site have accounted for about 25 billion losses in the past 3 years. So because of the letters that were coming up, we thought that it would be very important to have all these industry people who were writing the letters in one room, in one panel, so that we speak in one voice. Instead of writing 3, 6, 10 different letters to the same president asking for intervention, we actually just write one letter as the construction industry in one voice and asking for one thing. And because at the end of the day, we all have the best interests of the construction industry at heart. So we thought that we would get everybody who's a stakeholder, all the CEOs of major construction affiliations, to get together so that we discuss a proper way forward. And from the recommendations and solutions that are given today, the Construction Management Foundation will ensure that we keep to that mandate and that everything that comes out of this conversation gets carried forward, because that is what we actually do as a foundation.
Okay, we've just had an engagement with 3 of your panelists out of all of the panelists that has been there. We've had Mr. Gregory Mofokeng, we've had Terence Mwase, and we've also had Umbendu Lontlazi. So who are the other panelists and which organizations do they represent? And what, from your opinion, do you think is the role that their organizations needs to play in dealing with this matter?
One of the other panelists is Webster from SAPSEC, which is the Federation for Civil Engineering Contractors, and he has a lot of contractors under his organization. So he represents contractors. So it wouldn't make sense to have contractors on the panel because it would be a panel of 100. So we have the person, the company that's there to actually represent the contractors. They wrote a very interesting letter, and they've been writing articles about the impact of the construction mafia. So we think that it's very important to have him here with as well the Federation for Radical Economic Transformation president, who is seen as the mafia himself, also in the room. Because when Webster writes articles, there's always one underlining thing at the end of every article, is that we couldn't get Umalusi, the president of Freight, to comment. So we thought, let's actually have them in the same room, because they both have one purpose. They both have one mandate, and which is the advancement of the construction industry. So then the other speaker is Malusi, who is the president, and Advocate Wayne Pakok, who wrote a very interesting article regarding the construction mafia and the legal remedies that can be taken in order to ensure that this doesn't happen going forward.
Thank you very much, Busi. We certainly do look forward to the resolution that will come from this debate. And from the ACPM, we would really like to commend you, for standing up as the foundation to say somebody needs to talk about this. And surely we will be following up to see what the recommendations are. And once more, thank you for making the time to come and share your views on the CIC.
Thank you very much. And I think one important thing is that we don't have recommendations as it stands. What's so important about this discussion is that the recommendations are going to come from inside the room. So it is all our business, and we need to make sure that we do as much as we can in order to progress the construction industry.
Are the communities themselves well represented, because we cannot talk on their behalf?
The communities are well represented, and there's some people from Soweto, eThekwini that have also signed up from the forums to make sure that the communities are well represented. Because we can talk all we want, but if it's not a community, if communities aren't involved, then that means that this mafia will prevail and nothing is going to change at the end of the day. So it's very important that we engage with the communities as well.
Thank you very much, and I just want to wish you all of the best.
Thank you so much.
Let me start by saying this has impacted the industry badly. It's now viewed as an industry which won't think twice before they take arms against each other. For me, the real concern is that what has been promised or what has even been legislated has not been, applied to the genuine contractors. But then the takeover of the people who appear to be just merely bullies and taking advantage of the impasse in the industry for the implementation of things like 30% for projects over 30 million. It has introduced new bullies, kind of contractors, and affected the emerging contractors badly, because then they are not being given the work, but the work gets given, or it's expected that the bullies will be given the work, then they see to finish who does the work, and therefore the emerging contractors are vulnerable, very vulnerable to the situation.
Welcome back. We continue our conversation, and now we are joined by Malusi Zondi, the chairperson of the Federation for Radical Economic Transformation. Malusi, welcome to the Construction Industry Conversations.
Welcome, CIC. How are you?
No, I'm fine, thank you. And welcome to Gauteng as well.
Yeah, Gauteng, coldest province ever.
Thank you very much. You will be joining the debate that has been organized by Wits University and the Construction Management Foundation. Now you are the person. So can you just tell us from your point of view about the recent developments within the construction industry? This has been covered widely on media. It has been covered by several newspapers. And actually, I'm glad that the panel discussion will consist of all the panelists, from the various organizations that I think are actually part of a solution. So from your point of view, what do you think is the way forward in order to be able to resolve the matter at hand, and what the different stakeholders can do together to come up with a solution?
Thanks, Well, yes, I am Malusi Zondi, the president of FREDS, Federation for Radical Economic Transformation. It is an amalgamation of different business forums across all provinces. We started in KZN, obviously. Now our agenda has spread throughout the province and also national-wise. So it is true that we are working now with government to find solutions. But again, it's so shameful and regrettable that there are those institutions which still see us as enemies. Ours as friends was to say, we want participation in our own local development. That is just simple. And we will find contracts whereby there's a contract obligation whereby there is triple BE and triple PMFA. And ours was to say as friends, we want to monitor, we want to check that the big companies do comply. But now when we go around asking those questions, it seems like the big contractors sometimes resist to say we want you to participate. They will blend us and say we lack skills. Unfortunately, we have seen SAFSEC, the president, Mr. Webster, the CEO I met, has written letters all around. Mr. Webster, I must say, he has also came to our office in Mateshkom in Durban, and we have explained that whomever that bans bridges, whomever that bans cars, is against the principle of RT. We must not destroy and mud RT as if it's dark garrison. RET is about participation, RET is about transformation, RET is about black African majority that has been excluded in many years to the mainstream economy. So there, as I say, we are here as professionals, we've got our companies, we've got relevant grades, but beside grades, we've got relevant skills. So we are saying together with government, including private sector or organized industries, we must work together to say, now there's development, how do we take this thing forward?
It does seem as if there's actually a structure and a strategy from the side of the organization, but what do you say with what we've been seeing now that has been happening on site, where people are held at gunpoint, where vehicles are being burned and work has been stopped? What do you think brings about that, and is it part of what your organization is promoting?
We said, when we asked that question, we said, law must take action. It's a lie, and people have been saying this all around. They must indicate photos. When a person comes with a gun on site, if that person don't have a license, that person is breaching a law. Therefore, that person must be arrested. Why we are not giving statistics whereby people are arrested? It's a lie. These people, they want to just mix things or mix issues. There was no incident where people came with guns, unless security companies came to sites because people were afraid of their lives, because people who inspired confidence to people from the local area is us. And when we are threatened by individuals who say, when you come to these sites, you are going to die. Therefore, ours is to make sure that we don't compromise this agenda. You must go and find a security company and go to the sites and request that there shall be a meeting. So people are threatened because they know that they don't want to engage, and then they hide with investor confidence and they say we chase away investors. I must say, we as friends, we have said we must regulate business forums, we must institutionalize things, we must have policies. Now, whomever that will be against our police in a local area, because we must describe development, it must not be a hijacking platform. It must not be an act of terrorism when people just demand and they ban things. That is an act of a criminal. We don't motivate that. We are saying we are honest. We are here to say, let us all take South Africa forward, but through the developments that happen in our areas, let's all participate. Let's all share. If there is skills, let's all then therefore transfer skills, because when these companies do development, they then go away. We shall monitor that. We must make sure that the development are sustained in the proper manner.
I'm glad to hear your input, but obviously there's an important matter that you are raising, where you say that you are, at least the help that you are requiring is capacitation of the local communities, so that when the contractor leaves, there is some kind of sustainability. And now, from your point of view, how do you think that the industry can go about that, upskilling the communities? What do you think, from your point of view, should the rules of engagement be? How can you help them to ensure that they also help the communities?
We have raised our hand. It's good. Thanks again for these platforms. We have raised our hand. We have said, let us engage. Government can't do this thing alone. Government has a budget. Now, in these contracts, there is no use when you are given a development or a tender as a private company. Government, through their policies, they must make sure that this thing of minimum 30%, at least they engage local people. The tendency that we see is that government officials, they fail dismally to articulate a position of arity. Arity is something that has been adopted by our own ruling party, and government has a mandate to implement it. Now, if you as government don't have a strategy, you are failing the cause. But we have raised our hands to say we are here as an institution to expand, so that this thing of arity, because we know it better, it speaks about us, let's do it proper. We have said we have to monitor, because when people are saying there is BE, a company can just grab one person and the person becomes a ghost, which will benefit on behalf of the majority who are supposed to benefit, but there will be one person that is benefiting. And we are saying there must be a rotation. You must describe different trades. If you are doing a certain trade, another person must do a certain trade. And we are not motivating tenderpreneurs here. We are saying people must become entrepreneurs and they must become proper business people. Therefore, we are saying let's continue with government and private sector. Let's have a dialogue. It's good for me to say that we had a summit in KZN whereby we have been adopted by the province. Mr. Sikhezi Gadala has said we want resolutions, we want ideology, we want ideas from you friends so that we implement together. So that's how we are going to go about. Although it's a new thing, but eventually people will start to understand that arity is there. Not only construction, all sectors of the community.
So there are inroads. Lastly, Malusi, we are at Wits University, and we've got new entrants into the construction industry. And now we are having students who are kind of seeing the future of construction. They are looking at the future of construction in a very kind of uncertain way. And we've got the majority of them actually even in attendance to come and listen to the interview. What would you say to the students who are kind of now discouraged, scared to continue with their studies, and others obviously with everything that is happening now, that their outlook or what they held dear when they started to register for these qualifications in the construction industry, they're kind of starting to doubt. What would you say to the students who are the new entrants?
As an institution, we feel so highly flabbergasted by things that have been happening in different areas, in different provinces, especially these tendencies of discouraging our young people. We are motivating them to embark into this sector. We've got a responsibility as an organization to go all around teaching our communities. We can't run away from the fact that people are annoyed, people are frustrated, the level of poverty is there. But now we've got a responsibility to work together with our community to protect what's supposed to be good in our community. So therefore, as I'm here all the way from KZN here, I'm here to motivate students. We are going to do everything in our power to make sure that the industry again becomes stable. It has been stable because for the past 2 years, you see there's less shutting down of sites that has happened because of our intervention. We are going to intervene more. We are going to make sure that we work together with the law agencies. We are going to make sure that we work together with the police to identify those who just mad this good agenda. RET is there, not only to construction, infrastructure as a whole and different sectors. So we are motivating students to come on board. We are here as an organization to make sure that the industry is again stabilized.
I'm quite encouraged to say that we are prepared. We are saying there are solutions. What we just need to do is to work together. That brings us to the end of our 4th episode of the Construction Industry Conversation. And do follow us on our media platforms as we continue with other engagements and other pertinent issues that do affect the construction industry. Malusi, once more, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Ms.
Thank you.